Hi. So I recently lost my entire flock of chickens to some stray dogs, and I'm planning to build a reinforced chicken run before getting the next set of birds. And I could basically just use some feedback on the design. Let me go over what I'm planning to build and let me know if you see any problems. Please leave comments if there's issues. Okay, so currently I've got on the page chicken coop outside, which is 4 feet by 8 feet. Over there, I've got the chicken door and a little ramp, and over there, I've got a clean out door. The whole roof is articulated to bend out, and I've got nesting boxes over there, roosting bar in the middle. Um, so normally I collect eggs from this side. Now, what my plan is to add a run attached to that, basically going right between the door and the chicken coop, or the clean out door and the ramp, and then extend out kind of like that. And the reason I'm offsetting it, part of it is the clean out door, part of it is because I have a giant tree there that I don't want it to deal with moving. And if I didn't offset it, I'd have the tree right where the chicken run would go. So that's my high level view from the above. Now, in terms of actually building this, what I'm planning to do, let's set the basis. Okay, I'm planning to build some 8 foot wide sections, 2x4 is 8 foot long, use an 8 foot long 2x4 to kind of put this together. And I'm going to put a 4x4 in get a different color, blue. But basically put 4x4s into the ground on the corners and the middle of each side. Pretend that's straight. So I've got a bunch of 4x4s there, and then in between I'd have an 8 foot section. So each of these sections would be 8 foot long, 8, 8, 8, 8, 8, 8. You get the idea. So I'd have an 8 foot long section between each. So I'm basically building a 16 by 16 chicken run. Plus, I'd have these. It's 8 by 8 plus the little 4 by 4. And my goal here is to use a 12 foot 4 by 4 and 10 foot 4 by 4 and put it 2 feet into the ground. So this becomes 8 feet tall. And counting the 3.5 inches wide for the 4 by 4, I end up with an area in here of 265.4 square feet. I figure since I've got about 8 feet there, my chicken capacity is about 10 to 12, so I end up with a run space of 26 square. At 10 chickens, obviously they just move the decimal place. We get 26.5 square feet per bird. If I get up to 12 birds, I end up with 22.1 square feet per bird. Which should be fine. Most of the suggestions I've seen online have been about 15 square foot. So that should be plenty of space and then a little extra. Now, let's go into what these sides are going to... Oh, and the door is probably going to be about this. So in this first panel, we'll put a door. Erase this all. Now, each of these panels, my goal is to build this out of top and bottom are going to be a 2x4 that are 8 feet long. And then put a 2x4 8 feet tall on each side. So technically this will be a little over 8 feet tall because you've got the 8 foot plus 1.5 inches on each side. When I'm saying building these with 2x4s, basically the flat parts coming out of the board. They're not like this, they're like this relative to the board. So that essentially gets me an 8x8 frame. Put 2 pieces down the middle. If I remember right, that comes out to be about 32 inches per section. But 8 foot. So there's going to be my panel. Now, on the middle of each of these, I want to do a cut and put another piece across, and that will be wide side out. So if we look at this from the side, this is going to be, our 8 foot, not drawn to scale, 2x4, and we've got, the 3.5 inch section. Whatever. That's the 3.5 inch section. Pretend we're looking from this back. In the middle, I want to cut out about a 1. The idea here is that cut would be 3.5 inches tall, 1.5 inch wide, and then I'd put another piece sideways across that. So each of my panels is going to be about 4 feet tall, have a sideways 2x4 down the middle, and then the panel is going to be 8 feet long total. And I'm going to have to build a bunch of these because you just saw in the big picture, my run's going to look kind of like that. With 4x4s in the middle. Sorry, alarm's going off on my phone. So like each one of these sides will be one of these panels. Now on the panel itself, what I plan to do is take probably 1/2 inch hardware cloth, 4 feet tall, and run that around. So I've got the 4 feet tall hardware cloth on the bottom and staple it to the frame, and then do another 4 feet tall hardware cloth on the top for dealing with small predators. So each panel is going to be covered with hardware cloth and be independent. So the idea is I'd have the 4x4s. Let's draw the 4x4s. At each side, extending 2 feet into the ground. Probably cementing these into the ground. Add some cement. And then just put screws straight across, probably a bunch of screws, to hold the panel to the 4x4. And then on each panel, what I want to do is also, because my biggest threat out here is dogs. Hawks are a concern, coyotes are a concern. I don't think the armadillos are much of a concern. But people from the city, like, if they got too many pet dogs they don't want anymore, they'll drive out here, just dump the dog off outside of their car and keep driving. So by far my biggest threat here is stray dogs. Sorry, interruption. So my goal on these things also, in addition to the hardware cloth, is to get a piece of welded wire fencing that's about 6 feet tall and go over that, and then once again attach it to the wood frame. So this is going to be hardware cloth plus probably going to be I think I'm not sure on the sizing I want to go with this, because we're going to have 1/4 inch or 1/2 inch hardware cloth underneath. I was originally thinking 1 inch by 2 inch spacing on the welded wire mesh with like 18 gauge wire, 16 gauge wire, something like that. I've seen some that are available as 12 gauge wire, but wider spacing, which honestly, if you're stopping a dog, 2 inch holes will probably stop most dogs that I'd be worried about. So I might do 2 inch or even 4 inch spacing on the welded wire. Leave some comments if you got a suggestion on how big that should be. So the idea is I'm going to build a bunch of these panels. Now on one of the panels, instead of having the middle filled in, I'm going to put a door, which I think is probably going to mean I put an extra piece of the 2x4 at the bottom, probably an extra piece of 2x4. I'm sure that'll probably be about 6 feet tall. Duck if you need to get in. Maybe 7. About there. And then build a wood frame door to go in. Probably put an extra 2x4 on each side of the door. I don't know, I might need 2 at the top, we'll see. Just so there's some extra meat to put hinges across there. And then the same kind of wire on the door, and I'll figure out the latch when I get there. So the idea is one of the panels will open in the middle. Now, what I have no clue on is how to do the roofing on this. My first thought was to take chicken wire and just run it like all the way across here. So I've got a massive amount of 4-foot tall chicken wire that I need to use for something. So like putting, see, that'll be 8 foot, just covering it with chicken wire, same thing, all the way across would work. But if I get a raccoon or something up on the roof, I'm not sure if chicken wire, even if I double it up, is going to be sufficient for stopping a raccoon. Also, that's a 16-foot span across. Well, 16 feet plus the 3.5 inches there. So just a little over 16 feet across. And I don't know, because it would be nice to have something that supports it, but at the same time, I'm only going, like, if I go across this, get the color again, use brown. If I put a support somehow in the middle and then tried to cover that, it's an 8-foot span with a 2x4, so I potentially have to get some longer lumber to do that. I don't know how I'm doing the roof. Please, if you have any thoughts on this, add a suggestion. Oh, and one other thing. Go back to the original picture. With the coop. 4x8. And then the offset run that I was planning to build. So that's 16 by 16. It's slightly offset. What was I going to say? Oh, I'm planning to go around the base of this also with hardware cloth. This coop is up on 8-inch blocks. So it's a little elevated from the ground, but my thoughts are get a 4-foot tall piece of hardware cloth and just go around that. So we've got it attached like the top foot to whatever material I have here on the coop and around the outside of the run. Probably have some weird shapes. Top foot there, so it extends out the side by 3 feet. So it'll end up looking like that. And that hardware cloth would just be run straight across the ground. Like 1 foot on the side, and then, or up the side, and then the other 3 feet along the ground, just to discourage animals from digging and getting in that way. Which is a lot of hardware cloth, because that's 16 by 16, 64 feet around the chicken coop. Then 120 feet, somewhere around there, of hardware cloth just to do the bottom and then the sides. It's going to get expensive. But please take a look at this. If you have feedback, I'd love to hear it. Please leave a comment here. I'm going to post this video on Reddit. I'll check comments there too. Let me know if you see any problems with the design. Well, let's quickly go outside to go see where this is going to go. Okay, and this is where it's going to go. As you can see, I've got the chicken coop there. It's 4 foot by 8 foot. If it looks like it's weirdly offset from the ground, it's because I've got a septic line running straight across there at an angle. I just didn't want to put stuff on top of it. So the idea was put the chicken run in here. I'll probably have to cut those trees a little bit, but that's easy work with a chainsaw. The end of the 16-foot run would basically be that corner and that corner, so you can kind of visualize where that would be. Step back a little. So that's where it would be going. And over here, like the corner post would probably be in there between the clean out door and the ramp. So just somewhere in there. Obviously this metal needs to be cut because the roof is hinged to articulate up, and I don't want that metal banging into the chicken run once I build it. But yeah, that's the basic idea. Do you have any suggestions on how to do this better, or frankly how to do the roof? Please leave a comment. I could use some help.